InfoSec 2018 here at Kensington Olympia in London, and I'm joined today by Andy, Solutions Architect for Synack. Hi Andy, thank you for being here. So we'd just like to find out more about what Synack does, so please do tell us.
Okay, so Synack was founded in 2013. Our two founders were working doing offensive security, so effectively pen testing for the NSA. And they realized there was a gap in the market for the traditional pen testing wasn't really doing what was required. So they saw that there needed to be a more adversarial approach. So if you want to protect yourself from the hackers, you've got to think and act like the hackers. So what we did was just to set up the company using crowdsourced, the Synack Red Team as we call them, so crowdsourced ethical hackers from around the world that we can use to look at a particular target for a customer.
Oh, super. So why is crowdsourcing cybersecurity a good idea?
So at the moment in the industry, there's around about 1 million unfilled cybersecurity vacancies, and over the next 3 years, that's expected to grow to around 3.5 million. So there's a big lack of skills, and that's an issue for enterprises. So I mean that's one of the key things. So making the skills that are available. Obviously, the higher the skill set you're looking for, generally the harder they are to find. So utilizing crowdsourcing to use skills from all around the world means you can get the best talent available and give the enterprises the level of reassurance they get from having people that are as good as the bad guys, the black hat hackers, inspecting their infrastructure and their applications to make sure they're secure.
So just on the subject of enterprises, so how will they ultimately benefit then?
So there's a few things that things have changed. Though enterprises now tend to, if we look at how the pen test used to be used in the past, it would be once a quarter, once every 6 months. But organizations now, they're moving to agile development environments, DevOps, so they're deploying changes, pushing changes out every few days, every few weeks. So a quarterly or annual pen test, it's a snapshot in time. It doesn't work. So what we're trying to get our customers to do is do continuous testing. So it doesn't matter if the moment you push a new update out, we'll normally have say 80 researchers on a particular assessment, and as soon as that update's out there, we've got people working on it, checking it, trying to see if there's any weaknesses in there.
Okay, so on that note, would you say that enterprises are currently equipped and ready to deal with existing and emergent threats?
No, and this is the thing, the threats are continuous now. So there was some research done by an American university last year that said there's an attack every 39 seconds. So it's continuous. You've also got more and more nation states getting involved, so that the severity and complexity of the attacks are getting worse. And if you again going back to the point I made earlier about the lack of resource and the fact this needs to be continuous testing now. You're being continually attacked. You can't test your defenses once a quarter, once a year. It doesn't work. Particularly, as I said earlier, with the companies that are using agile development and DevOps environments, where they're deploying new updates on a daily or weekly basis. It just doesn't work, because as soon as they're out there, the bad guys are going to be trying to break it. So the organization needs to make sure they're protecting that as well.
Right, and you've mentioned agile and you've mentioned DevOps. So where do you see the biggest gaps existing?
It's really around this continuous testing. So if you're an organization, you've got to change. If you want to go through the whole process, typically to set up a penetration test, you'd have to take 2 or 3 months to get that booked. It's going to be a 2-week exercise. You'd maybe get 40 to 60 hours of testing in that 2-week period. If we did a 2-week test, we'd have 80 researchers on that. We'd have maybe 400 to 600 hours of actual testing. So organizations, when they have something to deploy, we can have a pen test even if they have a brand new application. Within 48 hours, we can have all our resources on that testing it. So within 48 hours that we're working for a brand new application. If it's an existing application, as soon as there's a change, it's being tested. Because our researchers are global, there's always someone online, there's always someone testing, so it's an ongoing process.
So just on that, so what do you think are the risks involved with using a crowd of security researchers, and how do you go about dealing with that?
So that's obviously a concern. If I go to an enterprise and say I'm using ethical hackers, I'm using Russian hackers and hackers from around the world, that there's certainly some nervousness around that. So we see it as controlled. What we have a very strong vetting process. So as well as technical tests, we do background tests, we do ethical tests, and the onboarding process is, it can take several months to go through. And at the moment we're rejecting about 90%, 92% of the people that apply get rejected either because technically they're not good enough, or we don't feel they're ethical and we don't feel we could trust them on our platform. On top of that, they have to come through our platform to actually do the testing. So we're recording everything they do. So in some ways, we're actually, when customers say, well, they show these concerns, we can say, well, if you have pen testing today, do you know every keystroke, everything they did in your environment? And the answer is no. Whereas with us, we record everything. We have full packet capture. We can see what they've done. We can also see where in the application they've been concentrating. So if a customer feels a machine in their infrastructure or part of their website isn't being targeted enough, we can change and point them in that direction and make sure it is, so that we get complete coverage as well. So there's a lot of advantages. And as long as we keep that control and that auditing, then I don't think the customers have anything to be concerned about. We've never had to dismiss one of the red team members so far in 5 years.
That's really good. And just sort of sticking with enterprises here, how do you think penetration testing has evolved to meet the demands of today's enterprise application environments?
I don't think it has, and that's in the traditional pen testing market. It's very much been compliance driven. So you need to do a pen test for your PCI compliance or your ISO compliance. So it's very much checklist driven. Though the organisations tend to use the same methodology and frameworks, same tools, and we're saying, well, that's not real world. That's not what the hackers are doing. They have different tools, different methodologies, and so by utilising that crowdsourced environment and hackers from all around the world, we get those different viewpoints and different ways of attacking. So, and again, if you've only got a team of 3 pen testers, they can't be continuously testing. It doesn't work. So again, for today's enterprises, you need that continuous testing.
Okay. So again, sort of moving forward from there, so how does Synack differ from other bug bounty programs?
So a traditional bug bounty we operate our researchers, our red team, on a bug bounty sort of payment method. So they get paid on finding the vulnerabilities. The big difference is, if you go to a bug bounty program, I could go and sign up today as one of the portals out there, one of the many bug bounty programs. They have no idea who I am other than an email address. They have no idea of my skill set, and more importantly, because we do such heavy vetting, we'll have legally we'll underwrite everything they do. So from a corporate point of view, if you're dealing with bug bounty, you don't know who you're dealing with. If they find a really nice vulnerability, they might decide that what you're offering them isn't enough, and they might go and sell it on the open market. So, you're taking quite a risk. You do have the advantage of the thousands of people that will take part, but what quality and can you trust them? So, yeah, the big difference really is we're doing it in a controlled environment. So we have the best researchers in the world, we monitor them, we vet them, and we're in a very controlled environment. So the customers get the benefit of that big array of experience without the risk. And we underwrite that risk. So if anything happens, we're liable, which means we're also going to make sure we vet them properly as well.
Of course. Now, of course, you mentioned about the skills shortage. There's not enough people within the industry to meet the demands. So no doubt enterprises have struggled. So who does Synack currently work with?
So we work with, in the States, we work very closely with government. We protect the IRS, their payment systems, their tax payment systems, so that's all Americans using that. So that's a very big contract. In the UK, we work with Santander Bank, so we're protecting 2 of their banking applications. And again, that's on a continuous basis. So we're, as they make changes, we're continually testing those to make sure they're still valid. We have a lot of customers. In fact, a lot of the security vendors here today, we test their code, but we don't generally talk about our customers unless they're, like Santander or Domino's Pizza in the US is another one. They're happy for us to mention their names, and they speak for us at conferences and so on. So
fantastic. Just to wrap us up, could you tell us just how can companies engage with Synack?
Well, they can come and look us up on our website at synack.com. Typically, the normal engagement we'd see from customers is we'd say to them, you've got a pen testing budget, you're doing pen testing today, give us your toughest asset that you think is really secure, and we'll show you that it isn't. And we'll do that initial, probably a 2-week engagement, we'll show you that you've got problems, At that point, then we'll talk about continuous testing or more single tests if that's what you want.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thanks very much for your
Thank you.
time today, Andy. That's Danny Eastman from BrightTALK, here with Andy from Synack. For more information on crowdsourcing and cybersecurity, go to www.synack.com.